Welcome today, oh my gosh, director, writer, producer, actor, you do it all, Kenneth Branagh, Sir Kenneth Branagh, I should say. Welcome. Thanks for sitting down. It's so exciting right now because you have one of my favorite kinds of movies. I love Murder on the Orient Express, what you've done with it. Big, expansive, 65 millimeter cameras, 70 millimeter presentations. This is what movies should be, not, what they've become now, where people watch them everywhere. And I love the fact that you as a director, forget the acting part and everything, recognize the great directing styles of the past.
Well, also it goes back to my first experiences as a junior member of my family. I remember we talked a little while ago about when I was 8 years old going to Chitty Chitty Bang Bang back in my hometown of Belfast, December of 1968. That was the beginnings of understanding that in a big darkened room with lots and lots of other people and a massive image, but a massive image of spacious and different places that took you on a journey, in that case of flying car, and went all across Europe. In the case of Murder on the Orient Express, you get to go the way we start in Jerusalem and then to Istanbul and then into the Alps. And there are just things you can do with that scope format that, as you hint at, for me, those timeless masters, your John Sturges's and your John Fords and your David Leans, they somehow gave you that sort of expansive breath that cinema can. It's fantastic, the miracle of all media on all devices, but that communal experience with a big image and a big story and a big treatment of it, I think is special.
It's so exciting. When I saw the movie, and I saw it early on at the Directors Guild, just big screen there, in 70 millimeter and on film. Which is like not done anymore at all. Except Dunkirk, which you're in, but you didn't direct, obviously. But it's so rare now.
It is, and I think all my pictures have been shot on film. I've acted a lot on digital, and very aware of the miracles of that. But what I'd call that living quality, that immersive quality that film has, you've got all of that. It's a photochemical process, so it's volatile, and those little bits of silver running through that celluloid, they move around a little bit. You have that sense of dimensionality that, although it ain't 3D, it has for me a 3D effect. It places you directly in the situation, and I know that for me certainly it was a masterclass to watch Chris Nolan doing Dunkirk in that format, but also being very, very innovative and flexible with it. Handheld versions of shots when the cameras for 65mm are extremely heavy. Hoyte van Hoyte, who shot that, was really got into tremendous shape, and he was certainly in phenomenal shape by the end of it as he lugged these things around to do both things that format gives you. It gives you scope, it'll give you the vast spread of the beach at Dunkirk, but also gets you that massive piece of a different kind of cinema landscape, which is the human face. And when in our case for Murder on the Orient Express, it's about truth or lies. What are they doing? That person under investigation. Just when you can see in subtle performances, real kind of mastery of the medium from people like Michelle Pfeiffer and Penelope Cruz, when under that forensic glare, it's very, very exciting. It was one of the great pleasures for me was at the London premiere, we had it in 70mm at the Royal Albert Hall. Massive, massive image, 3,500 people watching. And Michelle Pfeiffer walked in and saw the screen and said, "Jesus, that's big." She said, "Oh my God." She said, "Nobody wants to be that big." and then afterwards she said, "You know what? It was good to be that big."
Really? Yeah. It seems to me that the past is once again the future for cinema like that. Bringing that back, I just read today somewhere, they said it sparked a return now, people thinking in terms of it's bringing 70 back, and theaters are finding a way to...
because obviously everything's good if it helps make money and the economy and the sort of film economy is affected. Destination cinema is a tough call these days, isn't it? You have to give people a reason to go out. We know that certain groups will do it sooner rather than later, but what's been fascinating for me, frankly, with both the pictures that I've had the privilege to be involved with this year, is that for very differing reasons, for very differing pictures, whole generations have gone and seen these movies, you know, and so the combination of the event nature of the way the filmmakers are approaching it, they're saying, look, we think this needs a unique treatment, has meant that, as a friend of mine said the other day, he said, well, yeah, I went to see your film and I really liked it, and my 17-year-old kid really liked it, so did my 91-year-old mother, and my 12-year-old was really pleased too.
Wow.
And so that spread, and the same thing happened with Dunkirk, because we literally had veterans going to see it, and then you had literally the great-grandsons and granddaughters of veterans and things, and because although in both cases involved with violence at the heart of the stories, in themselves they chose not, in their very different ways, to present that in ways that might be kind of gross or whatever, and yet in something like Dunkirk, the weight of the potential for violence and death is massive, and at the center of Murder on the Orient Express is something that we discover by the end has been performed, this murder, with tremendous brutality. So they're in there, but the method of presentation lets it open to many more than you might imagine.
Exactly, and what you said is you had like a master class with Chris Nolan, who directed Dunkirk, and you as an actor. But I'd take you back further, 20 years before, where maybe he got a master class from you when you did one of your many Shakespearean film adaptations, Hamlet, in that format too. So you were there early on.
Well, yeah, and he was very sweet. He made a very funny remark the other week. We were both there for it when he said, I was one of those people who took great pleasure in pretending I'd seen Kenneth Branagh's film of Hamlet. But because people used to say, Hamlets are about so many things. What is your Hamlet about? And I'd say it's about 4 hours. and so I understood that it took people, you know, it took up a bit of time for real estate in people's lives.
All your Shakespearean films, right from Henry V, which is the first one I saw you in, which got you both director and acting Oscar nominations. Very rare. You're in a very small club there that has gotten all these different kinds of things. But you use the camera so well. And I noticed on Murder on the Orient Express, you're talking about getting the audience right into it. These tracking shots that you do where you're going and the train is your big star, and then the stars, the all-stars are your big stars, and you do that in succession.
Well, one thing I loved doing and knew would be a kind of a challenge, but it also sort of makes sense in terms of the rest of my work, especially early on in the Shakespeare films, when you're working on film with a dialogue-based medium where there are a lot of words. I think that in order to properly feel that you shouldn't simply be watching it somewhere else or listening to it somewhere else, you need a cinematic style that doesn't undermine those words or make it more difficult to listen to, but just takes you on a journey in the cinema. And the great invitation here was to say, you know what, let's introduce people to the train, and then let's introduce them to the stars of the movie, but you know what, let's do it at the same time. And let's do it because they're not expecting that. And one of the things that really is the simple event of a movie like Murder in the Orient Express is that if you start a shot where you come into the station, wow, there's the front of the train, and there's Marwan Kanzari who plays Pierre Michel, the conductor, and oh, Johnny Depp is on the train at the moment. Oh, but we left him. He's only been on for a second. We pan, and there's Penelope Cruz coming down the platform. You pan, and then you go with me and with Tom Bateman, and just passing through is Willem Dafoe, and then you find Daisy Ridley is at the ticket station. You take Poirot across, and now he bumps into, it's Michelle Pfeiffer, and now they're coming down the train. We haven't cut. And then Leslie Odom Jr. is there, and then Manuel Garcia Rufilo, and then Lucy Boynton, and there again, Josh Gad and Johnny Depp are all there, and 500 extras in the meantime, and the train, and the steam, and a lot of rehearsal period, I can tell you that. A lot of
I can imagine, yeah. I mean, you blow that shot, you're in...
Oh, please, even to say it is, because that thing you start rehearsing at 8 o'clock in the morning, and if you get the first one before 2 o'clock, you're lucky, and then you're fighting things like fatigue, and the costumes and the makeup are looking a bit sad and everything, but you know that what you're trying to capture is an excitement on that set that has made everything. We made the train, we made the station, all the actors are there in the same place. We're thrilled. We want to travel that thrill over to the audience. We have the sweep of a camera and a format that's going to take in everything, the pillars, the colors, the hats, the Penelope Cruz of it all, and in the movement of the camera itself, and it does it to me, gets the heart going a bit, because you want to say, get on the train before it leaves, and isn't it exciting? That was what I felt the first time I rode that train, and And there was a similar and different kind of excitement meeting all those actors. To try and put all of those things together was part of what this sort of cinema invitation was about.
I know your moustache. From the papers. You're the detective, Hercules Poirot?
Hercule Poirot, I do not slay the lions, mademoiselle.
Mary Debenham, monsieur. I'll forget a name, but never a face. Not yours, anyway.
You come from Baghdad?
It's true. No detail escapes his notice.
Your ticket?
Ah.
I might also ask you if you enjoyed your time there as a governess. The chalk on your sleeve and the geography primer. A governess or a cartographer? I made my gamble.
I always begin them with geography and monster them till they have the world down cold. They may get lost in life, but I'll be damned if they don't know where they are.
It's very interesting. You've been nominated for Oscars in, I think, 5 different categories. You're in a very rarefied place there of people that have been able to do that. So what is it that's your true love? I mean, you do it all, like I mentioned, all the things you do. Is it still acting or is it everything?
I do love it all, but at the center of it is acting, because I think if I'm any sort of judge of it, which I probably am not, the thing that characterizes the pictures I make is at least a determination and a devotion to make the performance as correct and as real and as natural as possible, to the style that the picture requires. And for me, the best acting, whether it's with words or eyes or whatever, Dunkirk was an amazing challenge for me to find just how do you convey all this under Mr. Nolan's instruction without doing so much, but being as much as you can. It's not a question of doing nothing, at least that's my experience, but of doing something, allowing something to happen to you and for the story and in connection with the character that serves the story, and that may be very, 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 as it was then, minimal, but with an incredible impact in terms of the story. So, for instance, in Dunkirk, the moment when Commander Bolton understands that in addition to everything he's trying to do and everybody else is trying to do, that nearly 800 small boats appear on that horizon to come, not just with the literal effort of they'll get some more men off that shore, but as a symbolic example of we have not let you down. We're right, the country has not forgot. That was, for me, it was incredibly emotive, important moment to carry. You couldn't mess it up, and yet you might say, well, what's there to mess up? Well, I think there's something to mess up, and you've got to somehow, so for me, what I'm saying is, when you're asking what do you like best, I like storytelling, but that piece of performance, as directed by Christopher Nolan, is storytelling in the same way as someone like Michelle Pfeiffer in Murder on the Orient Express, by the time we get to the end of her very complicated, interesting character, does, through power of feeling, introduce a quality and depth to the storytelling that is entirely her responsibility. And so I think that's where it starts, but I get pretty fascinated by all the rest of it.
So great. Kenneth Branagh, thanks so much.
Thanks, Pete. Thanks so much. Thank you.